Very good morning, students. I'm happy to see you all after a week's gap. Last week and the previous week, we have been doing the Best Christmas Present in the World chapter. I hope you have all gone through the first and second unit of this chapter, noted down the new words, and also tried to find out their meanings. So today we'll start with the third unit. I'll read the lesson and also explain it to you side by side. Did you by any chance try to find out the answers for the comprehension check for second unit? I'll discuss that before we start this chapter. Okay children, get ready with your text image which I had sent to you. You can use the same image, otherwise I'll add another one today at the end of this video. Or you can just follow the video where I read through the book. You can follow word by word in the same place. Thank you children. Let's move on to the video. We are continuing the chapter The Best Christmas Present in the World. We have completed first unit and discussed the questions and answers as a part of comprehension check. We have completed the second unit, but we are yet to discuss the answers for the comprehension check questions. So before we proceed on to the third unit of this chapter, let me quickly analyze the answers for the questions which are given under comprehension check. So the first question asked here is, who had written the letter, to whom and when? I am very sure children that you all have found the answer for these three things. So who wrote the letter? Yes, we all know that Jim McPherson, the soldier in the army, had written this letter to his wife Connie. And when was the letter written? It was written on December 26, 1914. You will remember this from the dates that was written in the letter which was found inside that box. So the answer will be, the letter was written by Jim McPherson to his wife on December 26, 1914. The second question is, why was the letter written? What was the wonderful thing that had happened? The letter was written to describe a wonderful incident, isn't it? What was the wonderful incident? That's what we have to answer for the next part of the question. The wonderful incident was that on the day of Christmas, what happened? The wonderful thing that happened on the day of Christmas in the year 1914 was that the two armies which were fighting against each other came together and started celebrating Christmas in a very different way. They played football in no man's land and they wished each other with wholehearted celebrations, and they felt there was no enmity between man to man. Okay, let's look at the third question. What jobs did Hans Wolf and Jim McPherson have when they were not soldiers? So when they were not working in the army, Hans Wolf and Jim McPherson were having some other professions. They were working in other places. Can you recollect it from the second unit of the lesson? Yeah. So Jim McPherson was a teacher in Dorset when he was not fighting in the war front. Whereas Hans Wolf was a cello player in the orchestra when he was not working as a soldier. Okay, next one. Had Hans Wolf ever been to Dorset? Why did he say he knew it? Remember, when Hans Wolf introduces himself to Jim McPherson, they both start talking about their places. And when Jim tells Hans Wolf that I am from Dorset, Hans Wolf immediately says that, oh, Dorset, I know that place very well. But the reality is he has never been to that place. He has only read about it in the books and he has heard about it from his school. And he also tells that Hardy was his favorite author. So all these things can be generally included as a part of questions like this. Do you think Jim McPherson came back from the war? How do you know this? Yes, this is a very personal question which has to be answered on own by everyone. So at times somebody's perspective may be different and a general answer will be usually followed. So if I have to answer this question on my personal front, I would say that Jim McPherson did not come back from the war. How do you know this? I know this because the letter that was found in this from this table says that last letter received from Jim. So it means after that letters were not written. And the letter looked very old. It was found from inside a old table and a tin box. And yeah, so it shows that because the letter was the last one, So we'll say that he did not come back from the war. So ideally the answer will be Jim never came back from the war. His wife Connie knew about his death. That's the reason she preserved the letter so safe with her and said, to be buried with me when my time comes. Okay, shall we move on to the chapter with unit number 3? Let me read it out and then we'll go on with the explanation part. I folded the letter again and slipped it carefully back into its envelope. I kept awake all night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove into Bridport, just a few miles away. I asked a boy walking his dog where Copper Beeches was. So what did he do? He just kept the letter inside his pocket when he was mending his table. He read the letter, he kept it safe inside his pocket, and he was awake the whole night. Why was he awake? Because he was curious to know what happens the next day when he goes to Bridport. So he reaches Bridport by driving his car and he finds a boy on the street and asks him the address. Remember, the address was mentioned in the letter. It is Copper Beeches, house number 12. Okay, so he finds that place and goes there. House number 12 turned out to be nothing but a burned out shell. The roof gaping, the windows boarded up. I knocked at the house next door and asked if anyone knew the whereabouts of a Mrs. Macpherson. So what happens? He finds the address and he goes there and looks at the house. What happened at that house? When he reaches there, he just sees that the house was burnt down. He says the house number 12 turned out to be nothing but a burned out shell. So the outer of the house was completely burned and the roof gaping. In a sense, the roof was ready to fall down, or it was already fallen. And then he approaches the next house and asks them if they know anything about Mrs. Macpherson. Oh yes, said the old man in his slippers. He knew her well. A lovely old lady, he told me, a bit muddle-headed. But at her age, she was entitled to be, wasn't she? So when the narrator goes to the nearby house and asks about Connie, that is Mrs. Macpherson, the man inside the nearby house tells him that, oh yes, I know that lady very well. She is a very lovely lady, but a little muddle-headed. So what is muddle-headed? A little confused-headed. And then he says, at her age, she was entitled to be. So he means that the lady is old, and at old age, it is quite common for people to have a confused mind. So he says, at her age, she was entitled to be. Wasn't she? 101 years old. So what's the age of Connie Macpherson now? She is 101 years old. Okay, keep this in your mind, children, that the lady we are talking about in this chapter is more than 100 years old. Okay. She had been in the house when it caught fire. No one really knew how the fire had started, but it could well have been candles. She used candles rather than electricity because she always thought electricity was too expensive. The fireman had got her out just in time. She was in a nursing home now, he told me, Burlington House on the Dorchester Road on the other side of the town. So the man tells him that, I don't know how the accident took place, but I doubt that it must be only because of the candles that she had been using to light up her house. She was not comfortable using electricity because she felt that it was too costly. For her to afford the electricity was difficult. So what happened when the house caught fire? The fireman came and it was very difficult for them to remove her outside, and just in time, at the last moment, the fireman came and rescued her from there. And then he says that now she is in a nursing home called the Burlington House in Dorchester Road, which is in the other end of the town. Okay, quick comprehension check for you once again. Why did the author go to Bridport? Who's going to answer this? Yes, you yourselves will answer this, saying, why did the author go to Bridport? Yes, obviously he wanted to find out where Mrs. Macpherson was. He wanted to give her something very important to her. What was that important thing? Yes, it was the letter which was found inside the desk. How old was Mrs. Macpherson now, and where was she? I don't have to answer this, children. I know you have got it. Yes, she was 101 years old and she was living in a nursing home called Burlington House. Alright. I found Burlington House nursing home easily enough. There were paper chains up in the hallway and a lighted Christmas tree stood in the corner with a lopsided angel on top. Lopsided angel on top. So here he has described how the entrance of the nursing home was. First he says that it was very easy for him to locate that nursing home. And then when he entered in the hall, it was decorated using paper chains. And the Christmas tree was all set up and lot of lights were used as decoration. And it had an angel, lopsided angel on the top. I said I was a friend come to visit Mrs. Macpherson to bring her a Christmas present. I could see through into the dining room where everyone was wearing a paper hat and singing. Because it was Christmas time, all the old people in the nursing home were wearing hats which were made of paper and they were all singing Christmas songs. The matron had a hat on too and seemed happy enough to see me. She even offered me a mince pie. She walked me along the corridor. So the matron is the person who receives people, a person who is employed with the nursing home. So he says, when I went inside, the matron seemed to be happy. Usually in places like this, people do not show much of happiness when visitors come. But here, the lady was happy to receive him. And she also offered him something to eat and she took him across the corridor. Mrs. Macpherson is not in with the others, she told me. She is rather confused today, so we thought it's best if she had a good rest. She had no family, you know. No one visits. So the matron tells the narrator about Mrs. Macpherson that she felt a little confused today, so we thought we'll not bring her in this singing program with others, and we decided to keep her inside her place so that she can get some rest. And she also expressed that nobody ever comes to visit her. She doesn't have any family members. So she says, because you have come now, I'm pretty sure that she is going to be very happy. She took me into a conservatory with wicker chairs and potted plants all around and left me. The old lady was sitting in a wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She had silver white hair pinned into a wispy bun. So when the matron leaves the narrator inside a room, he sees that an old lady was sitting on a wheelchair. And how was she dressed? She had a bun, her hair tied up in a bun, and her hands were kept on the lap because she was too old and she was probably not strong enough to move herself on her own. And he also says that her hair were totally silver in color, that is fully white hair or grey hair, or also called as silver hair. So he goes near her and he sees that she was gazing out at the garden. Hello, I said. She turned and looked up at me vacantly. So when she hears a hello coming from someone, she just looks at him but doesn't give any reaction. Happy Christmas, Connie, I went on. I found this. I think it's yours. As I was speaking, her eyes never left my face. I opened the tin box and gave it to her. That was the moment. Her eyes lit up with recognition and her face became suffused with a glow of happiness. The moment he showed the tin box to her, she was able to bring back her memories and it was all shown through her eyes. He says that the moment she saw the tin box, her eyes lit up with recognition and her face suffused. Suffused means the face was showing complete happiness because of what he had just shown her. I explained about the desk, about how I had found it, but I don't think she was listening. For a while, she said nothing but stroked the letter tenderly with her fingertips. So when he gave her this letter, she just looked at it without speaking, and she kept on touching the letter tenderly with her fingertips. Means gently she was just touching it and feeling her emotions. Suddenly she reached out and took my hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. "You told me you'd come home by Christmas, dearest," she said. "And here you are, the best Christmas present in the world. Come closer. Jim dear, sit down." So, when she realizes that the letter she is holding in her hand has been brought by someone, she thinks that the person who has come is her own husband, Jim. So, she tells him with tear-filled eyes, she says that, "You told me that you'll be home for Christmas, and now that you have come here, come and sit near me." I sat down beside her and she kissed my cheek. "I read your letters so often, Jim, every day. I wanted to hear your voice in my head. It always made me feel you were here with me. It always made me feel you were with me. And now you are. Now you are back, you can read it to me yourself. Would you do that for me, Jim dear? I just want to hear your voice again. I would love that so much. And then perhaps we'll have some tea. I've made you a nice Christmas cake, marzipan all around. I know how much you love marzipan." So with this, the lesson closes, which is written by Michael Morpurgo. So what happens in the end when she tells him to sit near him? She thinks that he is her own husband, and she's all very happy that he has come back for Christmas. She asks him to sit near herself, and she kisses his cheek gently and then says, "Now that you yourself have come back, you will only read the letter for me. I've been reading this for so many days all by myself. Now I want to hear it all from your own mouth in your voice. You read the letter to me. I'll be very happy. I would love to hear that so much. And then we will have some tea." And she says that she has baked a cake for him and covered it with marzipan. And she says that, I know how much you love marzipan. But she is not able to recollect that the person who has come is not her husband, and she is not in a situation to bake anything for her husband. So she just reiterates saying that, "Now that you have come here, you are my best Christmas present in this whole world." So here we come to the conclusion of this lesson. You are once again going to find the new words in this unit and find the meaning for that and try to answer these two questions. Who did Connie Macpherson think her visitor was? Which sentence in the text shows that the visitor did not try to hide his identity? That's all, children. Read the lesson completely once for yourselves. Read the lesson to your family member and try to narrate the story to them. Your skills in speaking and narration will improve when you read a lesson and tell the story to your friends or children near your house or to your family members. Enjoy your time reading and narrating the story. I'll see you next week. Thank you, children.